Good day. Welcome to section number 7. Once again, my name is Pumezo, and I believe you've enjoyed all the presentations that we have listened to so far. And I want us to look at something very much amazing and something that has been very much ignored. And I want us to look at the training and education in sports, which I'll be talking much to you on the area or the aspect of skills gap analysis. And we have sort of noticed that we've not really had a number of people playing that space in our industry. Because I think one thing we need to know as sports people is that for us to do a fantastic job, we need to have the right kind of people that are equipped formally or informally to practice. And I always say to the clubs and sports organizations that I work with that one of the key things we have to get rid of is the mind and the thinking that sport is not an industry. Many people still believe and think that sport is a hobby, whereby people who have nothing to do run sports, and you and I would agree that is not the case. And we are aware that a number of people who run sport, the majority are not paid. Many people are volunteers. They run from or on the engine of passion. And we want to move away from that to say that sports is an industry. We require professionals. We require expertise. We require people who are educated to assist us to do our job. That's why we have sort of embarked on all these types of training interventions, whereby we say, if I'm a coach, I have to be educated, I have to be experienced, I have to do all the necessary or the required courses that would help me or assist me to be a competent coach. And that's why we came into this section, which we call skills development, education and training, whereby we look at the industry and we look at the needs and say how best can we address the skills that are lacking, or how best can we train sports people. If you can look at any industry, whether it's banking, it's forestry, it's engineering, it's mining, it's agriculture, whatever industry you want to look at. And I've had the opportunity of doing skills gap analysis across a number of industries because I do work with several sitters. And one of the things I have observed is that in most industries, there is always some form of training or skills development that is always going on. And I have learned that when you stop training people formally or informally, you sort of stop capacitating them, because we have to understand whether in sports or any industry, things evolve. A good example is now during the coronavirus. You will notice that the old way of doing things, even in sport, is not working so well. That's why it is possible for us to do this training the way we are doing it, because in the past or traditionally, if you want to roll out a course, you would have to call the participants into a classroom. But we have had to evolve and say that in a situation whereby you can meet people, you can't meet them face to face, what then do you do? Then we had to come up with ways and sort of take all the programs, material and qualifications we have and put them on the online platform so that people can be can be educated, regardless of the distance or the location. So even in skills development, we have to come up with ways of training coaches, administrators, sport team managers, fitness trainers, conditioning coaches, sports officers, sports organizers, event managers, and all these different professionals that we have in our industry. We have to think of ways to train them so that they become, or let me say we, because I'm also in the industry, how do we train ourselves so that we become more competitive, not only in South Africa, and also to say, how do we compete with the world? If I'm trained in South Africa, can I sell my skill in Australia? Can I sell my skill as a coach in America? So that's the type of thing that we are looking at on this section. So I'll be looking at different things with regards to skills development, and I believe that you enjoy the presentation. And the first thing that we are looking at, basically, just wanted to talk to you about the background to say when we are talking about skills development, what are we looking at? So we are looking at a number of things. Skills development means that what skills do we need to be competent at what we do? If I'm a football coach, what skills do I need for me to be competent or for me to do my job as a coach very well? And of course, we can't talk about skills without talking about qualifications, which is the academic background of a coach. And of course, I know there have been debates of, we've had arguments whereby people talk about a coach's experience versus a coach who is not experienced but has got a degree from the university. And of course, I mean, that's a very solid argument. But that's not what I'm talking about now. What I'm talking about is that there must be a way that we skill ourselves so that we become competent at the work that we do. And this section focuses on three things. Number one is to identify the skills that are required in our industry. Number two is to come up with different ways, which we call the intervention strategies, to say now that we have identified the skills that we lack, what then do we do with those skills? And number three, we look at the impact. Like once people are trained, once people are sent on a course, one of the things we have learned to measure is the impact of the course that we attend. For example, if you are sent on a coaching course by your club, one of the things that the club should perhaps do is to measure the impact of the course that you attended. If you've gone for, let's say, for a D license or whatever course that you've done, when you come back as a club manager, I need to find time to assess my coach to see that my coach has done a D license. And I need to see, does the course that he has done have an impact on his job? So that is very key. So that's the whole exercise behind this. And I'll take you through the steps that one could go through when you are analyzing or assessing skills gaps in your club or your organization. Now, normally in most industries, like I said to you, as much as I work a lot with sports people because that's where I come from. But I've had the privilege of working with other organizations that are not sports related, and I have seen that they are not casual about the skills gap analysis, and many of them have gone to the extent of employing somebody who's called an SDF. An SDF is a skills development facilitator, and that person is basically employed by the organization, and that person is working hand in hand with the HR. And that person's job is very simple. The person's job is to identify the skills gaps that are missing and come up with mitigation strategies and find money for those gaps to be addressed so that at the end of the day, the skills that are missing, they are attended to. Because a lot of companies understand that if you train the people, you sort of enhance the productivity of the people. As much as once you train the people, you stand the risk of losing them, because once they are qualified, once they are competent, everybody would want them. So what it means once you embark on the journey of training people, you need to know that it's a journey. Once you train people, you expose them to greener pastures, and you are likely to lose them. So training has to be continuous so that you know that once I've trained them, once they are qualified, I'm likely to lose them. So you always have another group that is in progress, that is sort of waiting to replace whoever gets a promotion or gets taken out by another club and all those type of things. So basically, when we look at skills development, we look at a number of steps. Step one is to plan for the skills gap. And if you look at the manual, you can see that on step one, section number 7, we look at the planning. Now, when you plan for skills gaps, you look at two groups, I would say, or two categories in a club or an organization. The first category, we're looking at individual skills, like the various skills that individuals that they require in order to do their jobs well. For example, if I work in a club, let's say I work as an administrator. If I'm assessed, maybe somebody would say, perhaps I need telephone skills. Perhaps I need filing skills. Perhaps I need minute writing skills. Perhaps I need report writing skills, or so many things. There are so many things that you would need. Then if I work as a skills development facilitator, I sit with each and every individual at the office or each and every department or each and every head of department, depending on the size of the company. So when I do that, I look at or identify all the skills that are lacking per department or per individual. Then when I have that information, I write my skills plan, meaning what then needs to be done with the information that I've received. And the next set of skills that you may identify are the team skills, whereby you identify the skills that are lacking in a group, like the whole department. Or you might say that all my coaches, they need to do a coaching course. Now that will be a skill that is lacking across all the coaches. Unlike the first one, whereby we say we're looking at a skill that is lacking in a certain individual. Now, and one of the questions that you always ask is, why do we need to identify the skills? And the answer is very simple. You cannot address what you're not aware of. Well, once you identify the skills, then you begin to come up with the training plans. And I must say to you that education and training is very expensive, because you know that training of people, it comes at a price. Once you've identified the skills, now you come up with a plan, and part of the plan is the budget. The budget would be, how much do we require to do these courses, or how much do we need to pay the fees for the people that must be trained. And step number 2, we begin to identify the important skills. Now, important skills, they are in two, I would say, in two levels. The first level, we're looking at the skills that are needed by the club or by the organization currently. Meaning, what skills do we need now for the club to move, or for my company or my office to move to the next level? Those, I would call those the current skills, the skills that I need to move to the next level. And the second category of skills are the skills that will be required in future. And one of the things I have learned in business is that if you want to last long in business, you have to predict the future. You have to know that in the next 5 years, the world will be going this direction. And if you are able to make that prediction, then you are able to position yourself so that when the world changes, you will not be surprised. So that information, it helps you to be relevant. And one of the things that have surprised all of us is the coronavirus. And a lot of organizations that have moved their programs or services online, when the coronavirus shook the world, they were not so much affected because they were sort of ready. Yes, they did not know what was going to happen, but they could see that the world is evolving towards technology. And I'm sure you and I would understand that one of the things we all need to do if we want to remain relevant in business or whatever you do, you have to move towards technological inventions or interventions. Because if you cannot do your coaching remotely, if you cannot do whatever you are doing online, you will notice that perhaps in the next 5, 10 years, you will not be relevant. So the skills we identify, they help us to prepare ourselves, for the future. Or the skills we identify now, they can assist us to plan going forward. Or basically, I can say it in another way around by saying that I need to identify the skills that I'll require in future, which is in the next year, in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, in the next 4 years, and all those type of things. And when you look at step number 3, it says measure the current skills. Now, when you have, let's say I'm running a sports club, one of the things I need to be aware of, if I've got 2 administrators, 2 coaches, 2 team managers, I need to know what skills do they have. Do they have the relevant skills? Yes or no? And if I've got 2 coaches, how many out of the 2 coaches have done a coaching course? And how far did they go? Meaning, to what level did they study? Now, that information, it helps me to sort of plan for those who might be lacking some of the skills. And then also that helps me to identify those who might not have any type of skill. Because remember, we are trying to move our industry forward by saying that sports people have been undermined. We have people who do other jobs and who believe that sports is not an industry, or sports is something you do at your free time. And we are trying to get rid of that, to say, you know what, we have to formalize sports. Sports is an industry. Sports is an industry that should be big and boost our economy. And as you all know, that all stable industries, they've got very stable, I'll say, training interventions and methods. And therefore, if we want to make our industry a solid industry, we have to train our people on regular basis intentionally. Without doing that, there is no way that we can have good, competent, and qualified people in our industry. And step number 4, once we've identified the skills, the gaps, we have to keep up generating data. Data is numbers that we get from the analysis, and those numbers, they inform us as to how many people do we need to train, how much money do we need to train, do we need to spend on the training. And there's something I want to bring, into our attention. When you talk about skills development, you can equip yourself as an organization by simply saying that I want to do a lot of my training internally if you have the capacity. Because remember, anytime you outsource, you lose money. Every business, anytime you outsource, you lose money. So one of the key things that big organizations have managed to do is to do a lot of things internally. So when you talk about training, informal training can be done internally, whereby maybe an administrator, a senior administrator, can intentionally mentor a junior administrator. A senior coach can intentionally mentor a junior coach. So that is a form of training that is done internally. And of course, I can't run away from the fact that there are times whereby training cannot be done internally, meaning internally you might not have the necessary expertise. Then you will be forced to get a service provider to come in and handle that for you, because you don't have the necessary expertise or infrastructure or whatever is required to do that. So these are the type of things that we are looking at. Once you get your data, then you should be able to plan and look at the funding. And when I talk about funding, remember, there is no training without funding. And the reason why many people have not done training is because there's always been a funding factor, or I must say a limit, whereby you walk into sports clubs, because we work with sports clubs all the time. And many times when you suggest that, why don't you take your administrators for a 5-day accredited course, The one song that you hear is "We Don't Have the Money," and we have to look at this in many ways, and sort of look at other funding ways to say, if I'm running a club, can't I find money for my club? Can I apply for funding? As I go across, we work with all the clubs, across different federations in South Africa. One of the things I found is that many club owners are not even aware of the funding streams. I'm not sure if you are aware that if you run a club, the club is registered, you can apply for funding from the SETA. And I'm not sure that you are aware that if you run a registered club, you can apply for funding from lottery. And I have worked with clubs who even get funding from international donors. And those are some of the things that we have to explore. And the point I'm trying to make is that there is money for training out there. And one of the key things we need to do is to make sure that the organizations we serve are properly administered, in a sense that they have all the required documents that would qualify them to apply for funding. And I want us to look at some of the streams, educational streams that as sports people we need to be aware of. Let's say I want to take my people for training. One of the questions that you would always be asked when you go around is that, what course do they need to do? And I think for us to embark well on this journey, we first need to know what is there for the people. What are the courses that people can do? And there can be many courses, but today I want to look at, I'll say, 5 streams or 5 legs or 5 wings. The first one is the sports administration stream. The second one is the sports management stream. The third one is the sports coaching stream. The next one will be the sport fitness stream. And the fifth one will be the ETDP stream, which is the education and training, stream. And I want us to sort of unpack each one of these. I'm just doing this just to give you some ideas to say that there are many formal or registered qualifications or courses that one can do to sort of equip himself or herself. So let's first look at sports administration. Sports administration, we are looking mostly at people who don't prefer the outdoor sports environment. I'm aware that many coaches don't like to sit behind the table like I'm doing now. Many coaches, they love coaching because they feel that coaching is more outdoor. They don't want to sit in an office. They don't want to wear a tie. They don't want to wear formal shoes. They just want to be there with the players. And I understand that. But mostly when you work as a sports administrator, we're looking at people who prefer the indoor office environment, and their main duty is basically to run or plan meetings, deal with filing, manage some of the finances of the organization, and manage communication between the office and the club members. So usually, as you all know, that administration jobs have got lots of papers to deal with. And I know that many coaches and team managers don't prefer to do that. But allow me to say that even if you choose the coaching stream or you are a coach, somehow you would need to do some administration jobs. You need to submit your reports, you need to submit invoices and those type of things. So in a certain sense, we cannot really prevent ourselves from doing administrative jobs, or we cannot really avoid it. You can't really avoid it. Somehow you would have to do some form of administration as part of your job description. And the second stream is the coaching stream. Coaching stream, we are looking at coaches, different sporting coaches. You might be a football coach, netball coach, handball coach, volleyball coach, and coaches basically they can be trained in many ways. They can be trained in a coach-specific coaching course. They can be trained in generic sports coaching, just to understand the training or the coaching methods in general. And most or some coaches, let me say, they've done some coaching science courses whereby you learn more about anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, and a number of things that concerns us as coaches. Meaning, if I work with players, there are many things I need to know besides coaching them. I need to have some sort of so I would say some sort of understanding about how the human body works and all those type of things. So those are some of the courses that maybe as a professional coach I would need to do. And all these courses, they are registered with the SETAs, they are accredited, and anybody who wishes to enroll can enroll. And the next one, we've got your sports science. Sports science is mostly people who want to do conditioning of players. Conditioning, we're talking of assessing, I'll say, the health and the fitness status of players. So conditioning, we do a lot of fitness testing, screening. We design nutritional programs for players, and part of that, of course, can be sports nutrition. Part of that can be dealing with sports injuries, which leads us to sport medicine. I'm sharing this with you just to give you an idea that our industry is very much rich. There's so much to do. I remember, when I went to study sports science, somebody was asking me a question: what exactly do you do when you finish your school? Because many people tend to think that there's nothing to do. In fact, some people think there's no sports course. That's why they keep asking, if you are studying sports management, if you are studying fitness, what exactly are you going to do? You can see that it's still a mystery in many people. They don't understand how we work. And also, I want us to look at the third stream, which is sports management. As you might be aware, sport managers, some of them, they work with teams, they manage teams, they manage sport events, they deal with sports marketing, they do sports promotions. Some might be dealing with issues around sports law, player contracts. Some might choose to do sports facilities. Remember, in one stream, there can be many streams. You can choose to specialize. For example, I can do sports management and choose to specialize with sports facilities. I can do sports science and choose to specialize with sports nutrition. So there are many things you can do within that one stream. And the next one, we've got the ETDP training streams. This is education and training. And this has been ignored or neglected, I must say. I've not had many people teach or share information on this. And allow me to share, because as much as I'm a sports science by background, I have done a lot of programs in education and training in sports and other industries. And I have seen that as sports people, we are not aware of the education and training side of our industry. Now, the ETTP training stream, we are looking at the various courses that as sports people we can do so that we can serve our industry very well. The first course that I would recommend for sports people is the facilitator course. Facilitator course is accredited by the ETDP SETA. That's a course that you can do for 3 or 4 days. It's basically a public speaking course. It helps you to present whatever course that you wish to present. The second course that I would really recommend that we can do is an assessor course. There is a shortage of assessors in sports. If you liaise with CASETA, one of the things they will always be on the lookout is assessors that are licensed to assess sports courses. Just a few days ago, I got a call from a company, and they were looking for sports assessors, sports facilitators, sports moderators, because they are very, very rare to find. And also, once again, assessor course is an accredited course with the ETTP SETA, and basically it gives you the license to assess sports programs as per your qualifications and your background. The third course is the moderator course, once again accredited with the ETTP SETA. Once again, I must say that there's an extreme shortage of sports moderators. It's a course that perhaps one should consider. It just qualifies one to become a moderator, because remember, once you're an assessor, you then qualify to do a moderator course so that you can moderate somebody's assessments. I'm sure one day we'll get time to talk about that even more. And you've got a course that I would really recommend. Of course, I'll prefer you to do your facilitator, assessor, and moderator before you do your SDF. SDF is a skills development facilitator. And SDF is somebody whose role is to identify the training needs of an organization and come up with training interventions. And like I said earlier on, these are the people who ensure that there is an ongoing training in an organization. So their role is to identify the gaps in a department or individual, and they sort of come up with a training plan. And also they also assist to find money for whatever training needs that have been identified. And the last one, which is not the last, but I would leave it here, is the material developers. The material developers are the people who write the programs. The qualifications that we have, they write from scratch, of course, guided by whatever guidelines or frameworks that they are using. So their role is to write, and there's a special course that you can do, which is called the material development course. And I would really like to leave it here for now. And I want to believe that you've enjoyed the presentation and you understand everything I've said. However, as you might have watched the induction presentation, that if you've got any questions regarding any of the presentations, bring them to the Zoom sessions with the facilitator. You know that there are Zoom sessions. Write them down. When you meet the facilitators, you can then ask those questions. But if you feel that your question cannot wait, perhaps you can send us a WhatsApp, or you can send us an email to those numbers or address that we've given you. And thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.